Okay. Now, so again, this will just be a review, so I will be a bit faster when discussing Kirchoffs law. So, okay, Kirchoffs law. Kirchoffs or Kirchhoffs law? It's up to you lang noon sa inyo ang gamiton na pag pronounce. Now, we already know that there are two laws for Kirchoffs law. So number one is called, you have the Kirchoffs, okay, Kirchoffs voltage law or KVL. And then the second one is called, you have the Kirchoffs current law. Okay, Kirchoffs current law or KCL. Now, what are these two? For Kirchoffs voltage law, it's all related to voltage. And of course, for Kirchoffs current law, it's all related to current. So for Kirchoffs voltage law, you will have the sum, okay, of all voltages in a closed circuit is equal to 0. Okay? Again, the sum of all voltages in a closed circuit is equal to 0. Meaning, sum of all voltages is equal to 0. Yan ang nakasimple ang Kirchoffs voltage law. Okay? Also, for Kirchoffs current law, it will just be basically the same as KVL, pero imbis na voltage, current lang. So, for Kirchoffs current law, okay, the sum of all current, okay, current entering and leaving, okay, leaving a certain node, okay, is equal to 0. So the same gyapon, in terms of formula, summation of all current is equal to 0. Okay? So as you can see here, duha ka law for Kirchoffs, okay, they're basically equal to 0. Summation of voltages is equal to 0 and summation of all current is equal to 0. Okay? Now, there are other books wherein lahi ang definition sa Kirchoffs current law. So, ang ilahang pagka-define sa Kirchoffs current law is the summation of all current entering a node is equal to the summation of all current leaving the node. So, mura bag current entering equals current leaving? Well, if you're going to consider the rules upon applying Kirchoffs current law, makaingon ko nga sakto to, no? Pero technically, sayop to siya. Nga naman, okay? Mura ragog sa Ohm's law, di ba? Ang Ohm's law, okay, if you're going to base it on the definition, you have I is equal to V over R. Pero, pwede sa mahimong V is equal to I times R. So, just like rapod sa katong Kirchoffs current law, nga lain ang iyang definition, katong current leaving equals current entering equals current leaving. So, mura ratog, kani ang original, kani siya, yung katong lain nga definition, mao na siya. Okay? So, dapat parehas ra silang duha, si KVL ug si KCL. Summation is equal to 0. Okay? Hindi pwede nga mulahi ang definition sa Kirchoffs current law. Okay? Parehas ra na sila. Nakalahi lang is voltage niya, kani current lang. Pero parehas ra na sila nga summation should be equal to 0. Okay? Pero you cannot totally say sad nga wrong tong summation of current entering equals summation of current leaving. Okay? So you cannot totally say sad nga wrong to siya. So mura ra pud gug sa Ohm's law, no? You cannot totally say nga wrong sad siya because this came from this one. Okay? So these are the two laws for Kirchoffs. Okay? Now, how to apply Kirchoffs law? Kung saan man nato pag-apply sa Kirchoffs law in a circuit? Well, basically, we are now going to apply Kirchoffs law in a network circuit. What do you mean by a network circuit? Network circuit meaning it's a complicated circuit na with lots of elements connected to the circuit. So, forming a network of electrical elements. Okay, so complicated na kayo mong connection. Okay, so that is network circuit. Kung simple lang kayo nga circuit, let's say series lang or parallel lang or simple lang nga series parallel, no need for Kirchoffs law. Okay, so diretso na lang, kato na lang mga properties sa series of parallel. Katora. Pero kung complicated na kayo, okay, you can call it a network already, then you apply Kirchoffs law. Now, by the way, what do you mean by the word node? Okay? And what do you mean by the word closed circuit? Now, kano sa aman takaingon nga closed circuit na? Of course, we can sing a closed circuit na. Okay? So you have closed circuit. We can sing a closed circuit na, of course, if, let's say, for example, kanino? You have resistor, resistor, resistor. Okay? So, closed ni siya nga circuit. Pero what if na ay lain di nga connection? Say for example, inana. Okay? So, can you sing a closed circuit gihapon eh? Answer would be yes. As long as closed na siya, okay? As long as makapurma ka og loop diha, bisan pag naa pa na laing sumpay, you can make it as a closed circuit. Okay? Pwede ni. I can make this my closed circuit. This can also be a closed circuit. Pwede man sad gani nga kani. Okay? Kana siyang dako. Gikan diri padungha. So meaning i-bypass ni siya. Bisan pag naa ni siya isumpay diri, pwede ra gyapon ko ni i-consider kani siyang the bigger one to be my closed circuit. So that is closed circuit. Okay? So makapurma ka og complete nga loop, dili mo putol. Then how about ang node? Sa may pasabot sa node. Okay. So for node, that would be, sige atong i-explain ang node. Node is a point. Okay. Node is a point of two or more connections. Okay, that is node. In Bisaya pa, node is sinumpayan. So for example, let's say for example, kanino? Let's say resistor, then connected here, resistor, then resistor, then resistor. Okay, then I will consider this as my node. Okay, so again, sa Bisaya pa, node is sinumpayan. As long as na ay sinumpayan, node na siya. And we can form a node if you have two parts connected together. You can form a node. Diba? So kung nakay duha ka buok, pwede na nimo ma-connect as sinumpayan. That is node. So kana maklaro na to what is closed circuit and what is node. Now, arita sa how are we going to apply Kirchoffs law in network circuits. So with that one, tagaan ta mo og steps how to apply. Okay, para naamoy para you can have a you can have a reference. So pwede niyo masunod ang steps. Pero if you have your own steps, pwede na sa din ninyo sundon. Pero kung naglibog ka, okay, maglibog ka, asa man jud ka dapat magsugod. Kay unsa may sunod nimong buhaton once mahimo na nimo siya. For example, nag-AVL na ka, sa sunod nimong buhaton. Okay? So you can follow these steps. Pero if you don't want to follow because you have your own steps, then it's okay. Okay? So, steps in applying steps. Uy, nag-record na mo? Oh, nag-record na. Steps in applying Kirchoffs law. Okay, Kirchoffs law in a network circuit. Okay. So you again you can follow these steps if you want, but if you don't like kay naamoy yung kagalingon, then pwede ra sabi. Dili na siya compulsory nga sundon gyud. Okay? Each one of us na may unique na pamagi. Now, step number 1. Okay? What you're going to do first is assign current, okay, in every resistor. Okay? Sa kada resistor mag-assign ka og current. Kung saan ang pag-assign, sir? For example, mo ni imong resistor R. Mag-assign ka dihag current. Na unsa mo pag-assign ang current, sir? Now, current is technically the flow of electrons. So, you can assign current in terms of an arrow. So, let's say, mo ni imong current ay, okay, going to the right. Or let's say, for example, mo ni mong going to the left. Okay? Again, it's up to you. Okay? Pwede ka ka-assume going to the right, going to the left, going top, going up, or going down. Okay? Ikaw ray bahala mag-assume. Okay? Sa direction sa ka. Now, take note that number of unknown currents, okay, will be equal to the number of equations needed. So kung pila ka book unknown current ang imuhang mapurma sa imuhang circuit, then that would be the number of equations na kailangan nimo. For example, there are 4 unknown currents sa imuhang circuit. Then you need at least 4 equations. Of course, kailangan yun nga equal kay unsa man yung pag-solve sa imong unknown kung dili parehas. Mas maigay siguro nga mas daghan ang number of equations kumpara sa number of unknowns. Okay? Pero dili pwede nga mas gamay imuhang equation kumpara sa imong number of unknown. Okay? Kung gamay rin mo equation, unsa mo pag-solve sa imong unknown. Okay? Now that is step number 1. Step number 2. Step number 2, you're going to assign. Okay? Assign loop to assign loop to a closed circuit. Where there is no voltage source connected. We have voltage source current tayo. Where there is no current source connected. Okay, mag-assign ko na ka og loop. So na nga loop, sir? Usual loop. Clockwise nga loop or counterclockwise nga loop. Okay, mag-assign ka og loop. Okay? Nga nang mag-assign man ka og loop. Now, that loop will be your basis, no? In the future when you're going to apply for KVL. Now, sir, nagisgot lagi tag current source. Na ay current source? Di ba voltage source naman ang na? Now, let's discuss this one. So, din yung mga current sources. Okay? Now, there are different types of sources. So, side trips at tagamay. You have first, okay, presented by a circle with plus minus. So this will be an independent, okay, independent voltage source. So meaning independent, meaning it has its own value. Then you also have, okay, circle gihapon pero represented by an arrow. This will be independent, okay, independent current source. So of course, kung naa kay independent source, you also have dependent sources. Okay? So for example, this one, no? Represented by a diamond. Okay, with plus minus inside, you will have, this is your dependent. Okay, dependent voltage source. And then, kung naa kay dependent voltage source, of course, naa say current source. Diba? So you have here dependent current sources. Current source. Dependent current source. Okay? But there are also different types of dependent sources. Nay question? Lara? Nay question? Murag di na ko maklaro. Okay. So again, no, there are also different types of dependent source. So naapod ni klase pud kani sila dependent source. So na sir, okay? So first type of dependent source, okay, you have voltage. Then let's say alpha V. Okay? So this is a voltage controlled voltage source. So, voltage source na siya nga, gi-control po og voltage. Then, you also have another dependent source with a current, let's say, beta I. So, this is a current controlled, okay, current controlled current source. Okay? Then you also have another, okay, another dependent source wherein voltage gyapon na siya, pero let's say theta I. So this time this is a current controlled, okay, current controlled voltage source. So na siya sir, voltage source pero gi-control og current? Yes. Okay? And also, last type you will have, okay, current sad siya pero it is, let's say, PV. It is controlled by voltage. So this is voltage controlled, okay, voltage controlled current source. Okay? So these are your 4 types of dependent sources. So you have voltage source na controlled by voltage, current source na controlled by current, and you have voltage source na controlled by current, and current source controlled by voltage. So these are different types of sources. So muna ha, you will know na nga current na siya kung arrow ang representation. Kung plus minus, that is voltage source. Okay? Now, nga naman sir nga ari man ko mag-apply og mag-assign og loop sa closed circuit nga walay current source. Okay, the reason for that is directly related to step number 3. For step number 3, you're going to apply KVL to the loop. Okay, wait. To all the assigned loop. Okay, now, apply KVL. Saan ganito pag-apply yung KVL? So, these are the rules, no? So, rules in applying KVL, let's say 3.1. For example, if I have this source plus minus, and this is, let's say, VA, okay? And this is my loop. Sige, tawagon tanig loop A. Okay? So, kung akong loop A, nani style, meaning, it's entering on the positive side and exits at the negative side. So, ako ang voltage ani would be negative VA. So, you're going to follow the exit side. Kung unsay sign sa exit side, maoy imuhang sundon. So, again, for this one, ang loop is entering the positive side, yan i-exit sa negative side. So, you're going to follow the negative side. Then, rule 3.2. Okay? So, what if the same voltage source, no? Let's say, VB. Okay? And what if bali ang loop? So, let's say this is loop B. So, for loop B, ang ato ang voltage diha would be, again, you're going to follow the exit side. Ang exit side niya is positive. So, that would be positive VB. Okay? Then, another rule. So, rule 3.3. Let's say, for example, I have a resistor. Now, take note, a resistor has a current I, but also take note, it also has a voltage. Okay? So, dili lang kayong voltage source mo na ay voltage. Na-recall ba sa KVL, di ba? Kay all voltages, summation of all voltages is equal to 0. Yung resistor, naman sa na voltage. So, therefore, for example, this is my loop. So, let's say loop C. If the loop and the current has the same direction, okay? If the loop and the current has the same direction, then your voltage should be negative. So for this one, let's say negative IR. And the last rule for KVL, again, you have the same resistor R, then you have the same current I. Of course, you will always have the voltage, okay, developed by this resistance. If, for example, this is my loop, let's say loop D, okay, then voltage for this one, if the loop, okay, is opposing the direction of the current. Again, if the loop is opposing the direction of the current, then your voltage is positive. So this will be positive IR. So these are the 4 rules in applying KVL. Now, yun ka sir nga ang kaning rule sa number 2 nga mag-assign ka og loop to a closed circuit where there is no current source connected. Connected ko na sa, related ko na sa rule number 3. Asa man diha dapat ma-relate sa? Na, ma-relate na siya diha sa part nga mag-apply ka og KVL. Okay? Now, imagine, for example, if my circuit involves current source. Okay, for example, ina na. Yeah, mag-apply ko KVL. Let's say loop A. Take note, KVL needs voltage. Now, for this resistor, okay ra. Kaya naaman ni siya current, naasad na siya resistance. So, V is equal to IR lang. Pero how about kaninga current? Let's say 5 amperes. How about kanang current? Unsa may voltage niya? So, technically, wala. Sir, ka na 5 amperes yan. Current man ng 5 amperes, no? You need voltage man. So, mag-apply kag KVL dire, dapat makaibaw, may bawaan nimo pilay voltage ani nga current source. But the problem is there is no voltage source here and you cannot use the value of the current. Okay? So instead, para lang yun ma-fulfill ang KVL, mag-assign ta diri og variable V. Let's say V1. Okay? Yeah, since nagpuno man kag variable, di ang imong overall variable or overall nga unknown variable sa imong circuit will now become, will be added by one more unknown. So let's say for example, kung upat ra unta to imong unknown, nya kay gipugos man nimo og KVL ang usa ka closed circuit nga naay current source, di napugos ka og butang og napugos ka og butang og another unknown variable, di imbes na upat mahimo na noong 5. So mahimong mas complicated ang imong equation. Well, technically, you cannot say sad nga dili pwede. Okay? Kay pwede ra man gyud na, no? Magpuno lang jud ka og unknown or variable. Pero ang problema ana is, the more ma-complicated imong circuit, the more magkalisod or the more ka magproblema, the more ka madugay or unsa ba na diha. So kanang maglisod man ta. So mas maayo dili na lang ta na i-appeal, no? Dili na lang ta na buhaton kay para makalihay ta. Okay? So that is the reason why nga I want you to make a loop lang to a closed circuit where there is no current source. Okay? So again, for step 3, apply KVL to the assigned map. Lastly, next, step 4. Okay? Sir, di ba niingon man ka nga the number of unknown currents equals the number of equations needed. What if, sir, pag-apply na kong KVL kay, kuwangan gyapon na kong equations nga kailangan. Let's say, kailangan ko 3 equations. Kaya na ako 3 ka unknown. Pero, duhara ako ang napurma sa KVL. Duhara ka equation. As mami mangita sa ikatulong na equation. Now, for that one, of course, you're going to need step number 4. Okay? So, dihanan mo kami ng step number 4 kung dili day kayo ng KVL. Okay? Step number 4, apply. Okay? Apply KCL. Apply KCL to the closed circuit. Okay, to a closed circuit with no voltage source. Okay? So for this step, nga naman sir, nga mag-apply tag KCL sa katuramang closed circuit nga walay voltage source. Now, very simple. Of course, KCL requires current. Same ra gyapon ani nga scenario. What if, for example, I have a voltage source? Okay? Nya, na-apply na ko KVL, apply na ko, let's say, okay? Kuwangan din, no? Apply KCL to a node dili to a closed circuit. Nagabag naman ko eh. Apply KCL to a node. Oh, yeah. With no voltage source connected. With no connected voltage source. Okay, apply KCL to a node with no connected voltage source. So for example, inani, no? So I'm going to assume this will be my node. Let's say node X. Mag-apply ko KCL diha. Okay? Now, unsa ganito yung rule sa KCL? So there are only 2 rules. Okay? For rule number 1, for applying KCL, you will have current. Okay? Current entering a node would be positive. And current leaving a node, that is equal to negative. So, tanang current na pasod sa node, positive gina. Tanang current na pagawas gikan sa node, always ginang negative. Okay? So, for this one, for example, no, na ako yung node eh. So, assume na kung muna akong node X. If I'm going to apply KCL here, let's say for example, muna ako ang I1. Let's say for example, sample. Itong karo ko, sample ni Chorus. Let's say, mong kuning I2. Yan ka na I3. Okay? So, for KCL, okay, tanang current nga padung musod sa node that is positive. So, for this one, ang positive ni mo would be I1. Okay? Positive ni. Yang I3, positive sa D, kaya padung musod sa node. Ang I2, ang taginana, no? Pagawas. So, ang I2 would become negative, kaya pagawas man siya. Okay? Gawas naman siya gikan sa node. Pero ay mo ang voltage source, okay? Kailangan man tag-current niya ang voltage source kay wala may current. Voltage naman. So again, same lang. Same ra gyapon diri, no? So kailangan man gyud ta makakuha og current, okay, para ma-fulfill ang rules sa Kirchoffs current law, then mag-assign ta diri og current. Let's say current I1. Di kung nag-assign ka og current I1, di mapun-an imong total number of unknowns, di mapun-an na sa imong number of equations na kailangan. So again, same ra gyapon nga reason, okay? Sa rule number 3 para dili ta maglisod. Okay, technically pwede naman pero musamot ka complicated ang ato ang trabaho. So inana ang Kirchoffs Law. Okay? So after applying Kirchoffs Law, of course, makumpleto na nimo ang tanang requirements for tanang number of equations nga kailangan. Okay? So, primero KVL. There are also times wherein KVL lang na nadayon, makuha na nimo ang number of equations nga kailangan. But most of the time, ang KVL alone is not enough. So, kailangan gyapon mag-KCL. Okay? So, next, what would be the next step? Step number 5, assign. Dili assign. Solve. Solve for the unknown. Wala na ka simple. Mag-solve na ka this time. Kung unsay ano, inano na lang. Okay? So, 5 steps na again. So, let me repeat again. Step number 1, assign current in every resistor. So, take note that the number of unknown currents equals number of equations needed. Step number 2, assign loop to a closed circuit where there is no current source. So, mag-loop ka sa closed circuit na walay current source. Then, step number 3, apply KVL. So, mag-KVL din kasi mong mga loop. Then, step number 4, apply KCL para makumpleto yung mga number of equations needed. And lastly, step number 5, solve for the unknown. Mag-solve na dayon ka. Okay? Yes, again, take note, you have the exact number of equations to the number of unknowns given. So, kailangan parehas sa yun na. Okay? Pwede rag mudaghan ang number of equations, pero dili pwede nga mas mudaghan pa ang number of unknown kumpara sa equations. So mas maayo nga mas daghan ang number of equations kumpara sa unknown. Kay makasolve ra man ta sa unknown ana. Problema kung ang imuhang unknown duha ra ka buok ay tulo ka buok pero may equation duha ra ka buok, lisod kay na pag-apply, no? Lisod kay pag-apply sa lisod kay pag-solve sa imong problem nga duha ra ka buok equation nya tulo ka buok unknown. Problematic kay na siya. Okay? So these are the simple steps, no, in applying Kirchoffs law in a network circuit. But then again, I know mas dali para ninyo ang sabot kung naay example. So don't worry, mag-example ta, no? Saan ko ito? Ano lang. So let's have example number 1. Wait. So this will be example number 1. Sige, maghimo ta og circuit. Okay. And then, tanga na gusto nga. Uy. Yung straight line yapon. Okay, then erase. Okay. So, assume na kung ano ay voltage source dere. No, let's say 220 volts. Then this one here, show na itong naagya po yung voltage source. So let's say 110 volts. Then this circuit here, let's assign this as 10 ohms there. And also our series here, resistor here. So let's change it to 15 ohms. And then lastly, another resistor here. Butang tag 20 ohms lang. Okay? Now, for this one, sige, let's solve the current, okay, flowing in all resistors. So, pila may current nga moagi sa kada resistor at this moment. So, these are your supply, 220 volts or 110 volts. These are your sources, 10 ohms, okay, 20 ohms, and 15 ohms. Okay, now, sige, we're going to apply the steps I have given you into Kirchoffs Law. So, step number 1, here, assign current in every resistor. So, kung sa panakadagana sa resistor, kailangan ma-assign na nimo og current. So, let's say, for example, kaning resistor, let's say, going to the right. Okay, going to the right, butang tag, this is I-10. Kanisad, let's say, padong ni sa ubos, let's say, I-15. And lastly, kanisad, going to the left, this is I-20. Okay? So, nanatay ko ano, manata sa step number 1. Next, step number 2. Step number 2, assign loop to a closed circuit where there is no current source. But on our circuit, wala man gid ni current source. So we can apply loop. Okay? Now, tips, no? As much as possible, lihayi ang super loop. Ano sa man ang super loop, sir? Kanabang mag-bypass na ka, no? Sampuli na mo ni siya super loop. Imo na ning gi-bypass na ara kay part nga gi-bypass. As much as possible, lihayi nga mag-super loop ka. Katurang mga regular lang nga loop. Okay? So for example, kanino, let's say loop A. And then for example this one loop B. Sir, kailangan gud clockwise tanan? No, not necessarily. Pwede rag na clockwise na counterclockwise, ikaw bahala, no? Basta ka importante maka-assign ka og loop to a closed circuit where there is no current source. Okay? So that is step number 2. Next, step number 3. Apply KVL to all the assigned loop. So, duha makabuk atong assigned loop, ang loop A and loop B. Sige, first, KVL, green. Let's have red. First, muna tong KVL at loop A. So, at loop A, this is your loop and then this is your voltage source. Recall, kani siya nga rules, di ba? Asan mo to? Gawa man ako sa itong gears. Okay, o dara day. So basta voltage source, ang rule ana basta mag-KVL kag voltage source is ang yahang exit point mo isundo nimo nga sign. So for this one, ang loop is gikan dere padong ni enter sa negative side pero ni exit sa positive side. Therefore, for this voltage source you have 220. Okay? Then, napapatay laing voltage source? Yes, naapa, no? Kaniday, naman ay voltage on 10 ohms. Nasa na voltage on 15 ohms. Okay? So, how about the voltage in the 10 ohm resistor? So, you have here, kung mo ni mo ang loop, recall kaning rules. Okay? if the same og direction ang current ug ang assigned loop, that voltage is negative. If opposite ng ilahang assigned loop, that voltage is positive. Okay? So for this one, this will be at kVA. So let's start with the voltage source. You will have 220. Again, ni-enter sa negative side, ni-exit sa positive side. And then for the voltages in every resistor, take note nga na aktay current. So again, same direction ang loop ug ang current, then that voltage will be negative. So negative, you have I times R, 10 ohms and I10. So let's say 10 I10. Okay? Next, ang loop ni agi ni 15 kilo ohm resistor, but then again, same gihapon ang direction sa current sa resistor o sa loop. Therefore, kung same gihapon, it will be negative gihapon. So minus 15I, nasa man eh? Let's say I15 lang ni, no? So 15I15. So therefore, we have our first equation. Not a first equation. Okay? Next, KVL at loop B. So, KVL at loop B, again, as much as possible, simple lang ang loop. So here, ang arrow, magsugod lang yapon ko dito sa supply voltage. Ang arrow ni exit sa positive side, pero ni enter sa positive side, ni exit sa negative side. That means, ang atoang supply would be negative 110. So kung unsay sign sa iyahang gi-exit, that would be the sign nga imuhang gamiton ni nigporma mo sa equation. So again, for example, ig-agi din sa voltage source that is negative 110. And then, mabalik ka sa tiyang roll dere, pag abot niya dere, ang loop is going up. Pero ang current nga niagi sa resistor 15 ohms is going down. So for this one, okay, recall this is opposing. Ni-oppose ang imuhang loop nga direction o ang current imong direction, and that would be positive. So plus 15I20. Okay? Then lastly, syempre kaning nga resistor naa na siya 20 ohm resistor, so of course naa na siya voltage. So inigagi sa loop diha, opposing gyapon siya sa current ay 20. So again, kung opposing, you will have positive. Positive 20 ay anong 50, anong 20 man sa 15 ra ni dapat. So this is I15. Nya diri pod 20 I15. Okay? Then you have your second equation. Uy sir. Okay, according to steps, the number of unknown currents equals the number of equations needed. Sir, we have 3 unknown. 10, I10, I15, ug I20. Okay? Saan na sir niya? Saan na sir nga kuwangan mo tag-usa ka equation? So again, don't worry. Naa pa lang ka sa step 3. Next, you have to proceed with step number 4. Step number 4, apply KCL to a node with no connected voltage source. Now, mo ni pinaka-importante, no? Apply KCL to a node with no connected voltage source. Okay? So, for this one, asa man dapit diha ang walay voltage source. Okay? Pero, first, pila man ni ka node? O, sige daw, be. Tan-ana to kaila ba? Now, ang atoang example, pila man ka node present sa atoang circuit. Palihog daw ko, be, pila man ka node ang atoang circuit. How many nodes are there in our circuit? Kani nga circuit ha, kani example, okay? Sige, palihog ko, be, how many nodes are there in this circuit? Pala. Ha?
Duha?
Duha?
Four,
Walay
four.
tulo diha? Na ay 4.
Sir.
Okay, walay tulo diha, walay usa. Unom, okay, unom. 5. Namawag. Online sabong naman ako nila. Okay. So, naay unom, naay upat, naay duha. 2, 4, 6 man. Okay, now, so pila man gyud ka nodes. Okay? So, let me tell you for this circuit, there are about 4 nodes. 4, sir? Na naman. Sige. Let's count these nodes. Sige, no? I will consider this as 1 node. Sige, tawagon na nig node 1. Okay. Asa man line, sir? Again, I've told you already, a node is a point of 2 or more connections. Sinumpayan. Bisan pag duhara na kabuok, node na siya. So of course, for the 10 ohm resistor and a 220 volt supply, naging na sila sinumpayan. Okay? Sige, assume na itong ammonia ang sinumpayan. Okay? So, second node. And then also this one, sinumpayan ni 20 ohms o ni 110 volt. Okay? Nga supply. So of course, assume na itong ammonia ang sinumpayan. So this is node 3. Lastly, okay? Last nga node, klaro kayo dara, kani. Okay? Dako kayo na. So they are all connected. So nakuha ko na, sir. So that is called the supernode. Okay? Supernode nga perting daghana sa nag-connect sa iya. So for this one, okay, na ay tulo. So na uban, na upat, na lima, na unom. Sir, pwede na sir nga dako kayo. Yes, pwede na. Technically, bisag arira ka rin, no? Bisag kanira mo i-consider. Di ba connected gihapon na? Connected ni o connected gihapon ni. So balik tulo gihapon ng connected. Kung dirira ako i-consider. So ayaw ni siya bungkaga. Okay? So katong answer ginihag 6, ang possible atong result is gibungkag ni 4, 5, 6. Okay? So ayaw bungkaga kung connected ra din na sila, ayaw bungkaga. Just like this one na connected raman eh. So ayaw na bungkaga og ihap. Okay? So you have 4 nodes. So let's assume this is my 4th node. So again, for step number 4, you have to apply KCL to a node where there is no voltage source. Again, same magyapon ang scenario or ang reason. Kaya syempre, kung mag-apply kay KCL nga na ay voltage source, so wala man kay current sa imuhang voltage source. So kailangan na ka mag-assume og value. Okay? So for this one, sige, asa man ta pwede mag-apply og KCL? Take note ha, kanang node dapat walay voltage source nga connected. So, si voltage node 2 na ay voltage source, di pwede. Okay? So, X ni si node 1, okay, kay puro sa resistors ang naa. Okay, check. Pwede na. Si node 3, dili sad pwede kay na ay voltage source. Okay? Samot na si node 4 kay na ay duha ka voltage sources connected. So, usa ra day ka buok ang pwede na to ma-apply KCL. But you don't have to worry because that's enough. Okay? We only need 3. We only need one more equation. Okay, para sa tulo ka equation, tulo ka unknown. So KCL at node 1. Okay? So again, current entering the node is positive and current leaving the node is negative. So tanang currents nga connected ang node. So first current, let's say kaning I10. So ang I10 padung diha sa node 1. Nya kay entering man siya, so that would be positive. So you will have I10. Positive I10. How about ang I15? Ang I15, nigawas na, no? Palayo na siya gikan ni node 1. So, leaving node 1 naman yung I15, doon na to ha, I15. So, may mo na siyang minus. Minus I15. And then lastly, si I20. Okay, connected gihapon ni node 1. And I20 is going towards node 1. So, that is entering the node. So, that would be positive I20. Okay? Then, wala na baylain. So, technically, wala na baylain. So, equate to 0. Okay, by the way, atom din yung ipang-equate of 0. Ay, my goodness. Paano na ito ma-equate of 0? So, summation of voltages equal to 0. Equation 1. Summation of voltages also here equal to 0. Equation 2. Now, lastly, ito ang KCL. Okay, equal to 0. That is equation number 3. So, we now have 3 unknowns, 3 equations. So, pwede na nato ma-solve ang ato ang unknown. Okay? So, muna din ang step number 5. Step number 5, solve for the unknown. Now, sa may ipangita. Ang ipangita is the current flowing in all resistors. So, kung current flowing in all resistors, technically, ang ipangita ni is kanang I10, I15, o I20. Kaya mo man yung mga current flowing in every resistor. So, we need to solve for I10, I15, and I20. Okay? So, for this one, so ito na lang buhaton na ni is either substitution method or isa. Nalimot ko sa usa, no? Okay? So, for this one, ako na lang gamiton is substitution method lang, no? So, for this one, himuon ko ning ibalihin ko ning I15, no? Let's say, for example, this one, ibalihin ako sa PCAS. So, mahimo ni siyang I15 is equal to, you will have 220 minus 10 I10. And then, naapa man ay 15 ang imuhang 15, so divide na to dere. Okay, so let's call it equation 1 prime. Okay, and then, how about ang kaning equation 2? Uy, puros lagi na I15. Nagbuing na. I20 man yung usa. This should be I20. Okay, I20 na. Okay, so for this one, how about in terms of I10? Ay, sayop be. So, ilisan tani. Himuon taning I10 in terms of kuan. Other way around. Delete. Okay. How about kani mo yung ato ang ibalhin sa pikas? This will be I10 is equal to 220 minus 15 I15 divided by 10. So, equation 1 prime. Then, kani siya, I will make this as I20 in terms of I15. So, for this one, ibalihin ko ni silang duha, pikas. So, that would be I20 is equal to, so mahimo ning positive, so 110, ya kani mahimong negative, minus 15 I15 divided by, since ang I20 na may 20, so divide ito of 20. So you will have equation 2 prime. Then I'm going to substitute 1 prime and 2 prime in equation 3. So you will have, here you have positive I10. So 220 minus 15 I15 divided by 10. Then minus I15. So I15 na siya. Then plus I20. So you have here your I20. So that is 110 minus 15 I15 divided by 20. So you will have here equate to 0. So only one ano na lang ang I15. Okay. Sige, atong sulbon. By the way, I15 yan. Okay. So, pag shift solve na lang yun, may itong buhaton. 220 minus 15 alpha x. Okay, alpha x divided by 10 minus alpha x. Then, plus 10 minus 15 alpha x divided by 20. Okay, equal to 0. Shift solve. Okay, so we have here ang I15 di is equal to 8.46 amperes. So we have your I15. Okay, next. Since tanan man nga current mo ipangitaon, so we will solve I10 of I20. Since na naman tayo 15, so this will be 220 minus 15 times 8.46 divided by 10. So, ang I10 will be, so, 220 minus 15 times 8.46 divided by 10. So, that is 9.31. This will be 9.31 amperes. And lastly, ang atong I20 is 110 minus 15 times 8.46 divided by 20. Okay, so 110 minus 15 times 8.46 divided by 20. Shift solve. Uy, hindi na kailangan shift solve. Hindi, ano. So, answer is negative 0.845. Negative 0.845 amperes. Okay? Uy, so, now you have your answer. This is your I20 and this is your I10. Sir, naalagin na yung negative. Now, for the negative part, you don't have to worry about this one because this just denotes, okay, wrong assumption. What? Wrong assumption of direction. Okay? So, meaning, sayop ni ato ang gi-assume nga direction sa I20. Okay? Sayop dahil ni. So, ang actual dayan ni, it should be, ang actual dayan ni should be padong dito. Mo ni dapat ang I20. Okay? Now, sir, mag-solve na sa tagbalik ka na, sir. Now, no need na to solve. Okay? So, yes, negative siya, just denotes nga nasayop ka og assume sa direction, pero don't worry, kanang iyang numerical value, sakto na na. Kung usbo na sa nanimog solve nga using ang I-20 going to the right, you will arrive with the same answer nga 0.845, pero positive na. Okay, so again, you don't have to worry about the negative. As long as sakto lang gina imong solution, kana imong numerical answer, numerical value sa imong answer, sakto na siya. Okay? So again, bisan pa og nasayop ka og assume sa direction, no, pag let's say pag mo gid na step number 1, no, mag-assign ka og current and every resistor. So again, don't worry, bisan pag masayop ka og assume sa direction sa imong current, imo ang resulta ra na kung sayop man ganina, mo negative ra imong answer. Okay? So far, any questions regarding this Kirchoffs current law? Mga pangutana? Lara? Lara mga pangutana?
Klaro, sir.
Piliban ako ng estudyante. O sige. Now, this one. As you can see, no? Ang atoang circuit, sir, wala may current source diha, sir. Eh? Okay, voltage source. Sa pag-example ko ng current source. Sige, mag-example tag current source. And also, mag-example ta nga na ay dependent source. Unsa may mahitabo kung na ay dependent source. Okay. Okay, no? So, now let me tell you, even if naa kay dependent source, okay, the same lang gihapon ang imuhang steps. Imo ra gihapon ning i-apply bisan pag naa kay dependent source. O dara dai. Imo ra gihapon nang i-apply. Still the same steps that you're going to apply even if there is a dependent source. Sige, let's try another example. Let's say example 2. Okay, example 2 nga na ay dependent source. Sige, this one. And then this one. Okay, then tanga tuog. Erase. Local, kanmi. Okay, how about this one? So, himuunta ning current source going up. So, let's have this as 5 amperes. Then, let's have this as resistor. 3 ohms. Then, this one resistor. 6 ohms. This one another resistor. 2 ohms. And then, himuunta ning dependent source. So, dependent lang ang current source. Pero, ang iyang value is, let's say, V over 2. So, this will be a voltage-controlled current source. Now, diin man gikan ang V diha. So, ang V diha will be here. Kung pila ang voltage sa 3 ohm nga resistor, will be the value of the voltage here. Divide ng imong 2 mo ng value sa imong dependent current source. So, muna pasabot sa dependent current source. Okay? So, ang value nagdepende sa lain nga lugar. Okay? So, for this one, current source siya, pero nagdepende siya sa voltage sa 3 ohm resistor. Sige, for this one, let's solve for V. Kani, solve na to ang V. Sige, same again, no? Same ra gyapon. Apply lang gyapon ang step. Step number 1. Okay, step number 1, assign current in every resistor. Sige, for the 2 ohm resistor, let's say going down, let's say I2 ni. Yang 6 ohm resistor, sige, going to the right lang ni, let's say I6. Yang 3 ohm resistor, now, for the 3 ohm resistor, naa naman kay plus minus diya. Okay? Take note, current always moves from positive to negative. So for this one, ayaw na pag-assume og lain nga direction, na naman kay positive negative diha. So sa right direction. Diba? Again, current moves from positive to negative. So therefore, padung ra ubos way lain. Okay? Pero kung masayop gyapon ka, let's say imuhang na-assume is padung ra babaw, okay? As long as sakto lang gid imong solution, ang imuhang value ana nga ma-come up nga answer, sakto ra gyapon na pero mo negative lang siya. Okay? So kani post lang mga nanay positive negative, so ato na lang sundon ang iyahang kuan no, ang iyahang notation. Okay? So let's say this is I3. Okay? So that is step number 1. So you have 3 unknown currents, I3, I6, ug I2. Therefore, I need 3 equations. Next, step number 2. Assign loop to a closed circuit where there are no current sources. Now, pwede ni mahimong closed circuit, but naa may current source, ayaw lang. Pwede sad ni mahimong closed circuit, pero naa may current source, ayaw lang gihapon. Again, no, ayaw sa pag super loop. Katulang basic lang ha, closed circuit. So, ang naibilin kanina lang. We can make this our closed circuit. Okay? So, let's have this as loop. Let's say loop A lang gihapon. Okay? So, you have your step number 2. Next, step number 3. Apply KVL to the loop. So, mag-KVL ta. Okay? KVL at loop A. So, again, we'll follow the loop. Magsugod ko sa tail. So, ang tail moagi sa 3 ohm resistor padong babaw. Okay, ang loop A, inigagi niya sa 3 ohm resistor padong babaw. Pero, ang current ni 3 ohm resistor, which is I3, padong ubos. So, opposing ang ilahang, ano? Opposing ang I3 ug ang loop A. So, recall, basta opposing gani, positive ang voltage. Ana. So, that is, let's say, 3 I3. Okay? Then, next, ang loop, muagi, inigagi ni 6 ohm resistor going to the right. Nya, ang current sa 6 ohm resistor nga I6 going to the right side. So, same og direction ang loop A og ang current I6. So, therefore, again, basta same ganyan og direction, that would be negative. So, negative 6 I6. And lastly, ang loop A, it will go down here, muagi ni 2 ohm resistor. And as you can see, ang loop A ug ang I2, the same direction. Okay? So, kung same direction again, that is negative. So, you will have negative 2 I2. Okay? And then, mabalik naman na siya dari. So, equate to 0. You have your first equation. Okay? Now, wala naman tayo laing ka-applyan ng KVL sa. So, kung wala na laing ka-applyan ng KVL, di next ta. Arita sa step number 4, mag-KCL ta. Okay? But before we proceed with KCL, now let me ask. Okay? Sige kani, challenge ni para ninyo, no? For this circuit, how many nodes are there for this circuit? Sige daw. Palihog ko na kung ihapbi, pila ka buok node ang kaninga circuit? Sige daw. Pila ka buok node? Sige, kindly guess. Pila ka buok node kaha? Kaninga circuit?
4.
There are 4. Ha?
5.
Na ay 5.
3, sir.
Others. Na ay 3. So 3, 4, 5. Walay 2 diha. Walay 6. 6. Size. Walay size. Ajis. Okay. So na ay 3, 4, ug 5. So answer is, in this circuit, in this example, there are 3 nodes. So ganun 3 man, sir. Again, as long as connected na ayaw bungkaga. Okay? Sample, this one. This can be considered as 1 node. Ayaw na bungkaga, di ba? Connected naman na. So ayaw na lang na bungkaga. Okay? Kung pwede pa lang, ha?
Birthday.
Ha? Kinsa to? Pastila. Okay, padayon ta, no? So, my goodness, mute me. Tay mute. Na-mute na. Okay na, so again for this one, connected na naman na sila, ayaw na lang nagbungkaga. Okay, as long as connected na, so sample, kanino, kaninga part, connected naman na dali, oh. So ayaw na lang na sila nagbungkaga, pwede naman na mausa. Okay, so that is 1 node, so tawag ko tanig node, let's say node X. Okay, then for this one, this is another node. Okay, so connected sila diri dapita, so let's call this node Y. And lastly, kani sa ubos. Okay? So, everything here is connected. Kaning current source, kaning resistor, o kaning resistor. Let's call this node Z. So you have 3 nodes. Okay? So muna, no? Kung sumpay na day na, ayaw bungkaga. Okay? Usar na. So next, we're going to perform or we're going to apply KCL to the node. Now take note, we need 3 equations because we have 3 unknown currents, I3, I6, and I2. But, nawa ako ang tab. So, but, na naman tayo sa ka-equation. So, we only need 2 more na lang. So, kaduha na lang tayo mag-KCL para makakuha tag tulo ka equation. No? So, sir, asa mo tayo mag-KCL, sir? Now, it's up to you as long as you can have 2 equations more. So, let's say, arin na lang ko na mag-KCL ko Let's say, mag-KCL ko at node X. Sige, diyan na lang ko mag-KCL. At node X, again, entering current is positive, leaving current is negative. First, ang 5 amperes, connected ni node X. And it's going towards node X, so entering na siya, so that would be positive 5. Then, I3. Ang I3 connected na ni node X, pero pagawas na. So that would be negative I3. And then, si I6, connected po na din ni node X, si I6. Pero, pagawas na. Si I6, pagawas na gikan ni node X. So, that would be negative yapon, negative I6. Okay? How about si I2? Now, si I2 ay labot, kaya dili mo na siya connected ni node X. So, katurang connected ni node X, kaya nag-KCL man ta at node X. So, naapa kani, no? Kaning V over 2. So, kani, current man bisan pag iyahang value, kay dependent sa voltage, pero this is a current source. And it's entering towards node X. So, that would be positive. So, plus V over 2. So, kung 1 na lain, equate to 0. So, you have your second equation. Okay? And then, we only need 1 more. So, mag-KCL na lang ko sa Y na lang. Again, it's up to you. Ato mo mag-KCL sa Z. Okay, it's up to you. Take note, mag-KCL ta sa node na walay voltage source. Now, for this example, wala man ni voltage source. So, you are free to choose bisag asa na. Okay? So, rito sa KCL at Y, let's start with this one. Current source man connected sa node Y. And going out na, no, palayo na siya ni node Y. So, that is negative. So, negative, negative V over 2. And then, si I6 connected ni node Y. And it's about to enter node Y. So, plus I6. And then, si I2 connected sa siya ni node Y. And nigawas na siya, no? Palayo na siya ni node Y. So, that is negative I2. Okay? There's nothing else. Again, equate to 0. So, you have your third equation. Now, for this one, as you can see, kuan sir, kanang, pwede na akong mag-solve, sir. Sige, no? Pero, kung imong tan-aw og tarong, you don't have only 3 unknowns. You have 4 unknowns. Sir, unsa may kaupat, sir? Okay, so you have your first unknown, I3. Second unknown, I6. Third unknown, I2. Okay, so I3, I6, niya I6 ug I2. Ang fourth unknown is V. Upat lagi ka unknown, sir. So meaning, we need 4 equations. Dili di ay 3 equations lang. Okay, well, technically correct. So we need a fourth equation. Kinaa may ika-fourth nga unknown, which is ang V. Dali ra, sir, mag-KCL lang to sa Z, kay naapa may Z. So, mag-KCL na lang to na rin. Well, pwede sad, no? Pero, pag inani nga mga senaryo, okay, ayaw pag-KCL sa Z. Focus ka sa V. Asa man dapit ang V? Ang V is naa sa 3 ohm nga resistor. Okay? At V. At V, ang V naa sa 3 ohm resistor. Now, from Ohm's law, di ba, V is equal to I times R. So, we can have V is equal to I times R, I3, times 3 ohms. Di ba? Mao man yung current sa 3 ohm resistor. Okay? Or, we can have this as, pwede tani, moong I3 is equal to V over 3. Dara ato ang fourth equation. Okay? So, dali ra. So, muna kung giingon nga, mas maayog ayaw pag-KCL, focus ka sa V. Okay? So, siya man maoy problema, di diha kanya mag-focus. So for this one, ang I3 is equal to V over 3 ra di ay. So with that, pwede ra nato ni kanida ang I3 mahimo ra ng V over 3. Okay? Nya kanisad I3 V over 3. Diri wala ra. So here, with that makancel out running 3 diri og kana nga 3 makancel out ra no. So may bilin ana ato equation 1 will become V minus 6I6 minus 2I2 equal 0. We'll have equation 1 prime. And then for this one, mahimo ning 5 minus V over 3 minus I6, okay, plus V over 2 equals 0. So you have equation 2 prime. Ang wala ra gid mausab ang equation 3. Okay? So this time, 3 equations, 3 unknowns na gyud. So only unknown na to I2, I6 ug V na lang. Okay? I2, I6 ug V. Dere I6 ug V, I2, I6 ug V. Sige, let's solve for the unknown. This time pwede na ta maka-solve. So again, akong gamiton is substitution lang gihapon ha. So what I'm going to do is here for equation 2 prime, i-combine ako ang V. So I will have negative V over 3 plus V over 2. Then, i-transfer na ko ning duha sa pikas becomes I6 minus 5. Okay? So, ayaw. Niyo na to. Ang V mo oy, kay since V man may pangitaon, ang V may akong ibalhin, ang I6 mo ang I6 mo ako ang ibalhin dahil. So, I6 is equal to 5 minus V over 3 plus V over 2. So, let's call this equation 2 double prime. Okay. Then, I'm going to substitute. Okay. 2 double prime in equation 3. So, that would be negative V over 2 plus, ang I6 is, you have 5 minus V over 3 plus V over 2 minus I2 is equal to 0. So with that, cancel out ni kani. Cancel out ni o kani. So negative V over 2 ug positive V over 2. So may bilin, okay? May bilin 5 minus V over 3 minus I2. I-transfer ko ni sa pikas. Okay? This becomes I2 is equal to 5 minus V over 3. So, let's call this equation number 4. Okay? And then, kanina man lang mo yung nahibilin. So, let's substitute equation 2 double prime and equation 4 in equation 1 prime. So, you will have V. So, you will have V minus 6. Ang I6 na to is, you have 5 minus V over 3 plus V over 2. Then, minus 2I2. So, 2I2, you will have 2 times dara atong I2. So, 5 minus V over 3. Okay? Then, equate to 0. Kung may lain, no? Okay, equate to 0. So, as you can see here, V na lay anon. V, bayagi pangita. So, therefore, V is equal to, shift solve na lang ato ang buhaton. So, you will have alpha x minus 6 times 5 minus alpha x over 3 plus alpha x over 2. Then, minus 2 times 5 minus alpha x over 3. Equate to 0. Shift solve. Sige, for this one, dara. Answer V is equal to 60 volts. Okay? So again, as you can see, nag-follow ra jud ko sa steps. Bisan pa og, okay? Even if I have a dependent source. Okay? Nag-follow ra jud ko sa steps. Same ra gyud gihapon. Okay? So meaning, even if your circuit has a dependent source or independent source, just follow the steps, then you will arrive with the answer. Okay? Ang lisod ra gyud ani no, ang pag simplify sa imong equation, mao ra gyud lisod nga part, mao ra gyud critical nga part. Okay? Ang pag KCL KVL dali ra man. Okay? As long as sakto lang imuhang mga sign sa KCL o KVL. Okay? So wala lang na nangabali diha. Ang critical jud nga part is kaning pag-simplify sa imuhang equation. Okay? Para ma-solve nimo ang anon. Okay? So far, any questions regarding Kirchoffs Law? Mga pangutana sa Kirchoffs Law.
Sir, practice na nila mo, sir.
Napay pinapraktisan. Murag tarong. Murag mag-practice. Sige. Okay. So, nanaragyod na, no? So, muna nga, naghatag ko og steps para mas dali ang pag-perform sa or pag-apply sa Kirchoffs Law sa circuit. Okay? Kaya ako mismo, no? Ako mismo sa una, pero merong discuss sa Kirchoffs Law, naglibog jud ko. Ano
Sir,
sa
asa
ako
po
sige, ansay po na.
tintay kong answer kanang dili. Kaya kinamba na sir niya. Kanang dili sa lahi mo calculator sir.
Unsa man day calculator mo day?
Sharp sir.
So wala siya shift solve.
Dissolve ko anon sir. Pili i-kan sir kanang i-solve ang sa B sir ba. Yan. Bilang gamot mo.
So, bungkagon tani, dili na to i-shift solve. Pwede ra.
Sir.
Nani ay, may mo ni siya ginani. So V minus ato ning i-distribute mahimong 30 then plus 6V over 3 so mahimong 2V. Okay, mahimo ning 2V. Then minus 6 plus V over 2 so mahimong minus 3V. Then kani siya mahimong minus 10. Then kani mahimong plus 2V over 3. Okay? Equals 0. Tapos ko na ko tanang VV plus 2V minus 3V. Okay? Plus 2V over 3. Then, butang na ko sa pikas ang kani. Bulang na sa pikas. Nisa, di butang sa pikas. So, mahimo ning plus positive 30. Kani mahimo sa nang positive 10. So, this becomes, makancel out ni. Kana. Okay, 3V og negative 3V. So, may bilin, 2V over 3 na lang equals 40. Cross multiply, this becomes 2V equals 120. V equals, di na kailangan calculate ay, my goodness. Divide na og 2, V is equal to 60. Okay. Human. Okay? So ang problema lang kita ni is kung pasyensoso baka. Okay, if you have the patience to solve it manually. Okay, so muna gingon nga kailangan na ka magbag-og kalkyo. Kailangan na ka magkasyo. Shift o calculator.
Shape of course sir.
Ayaw, sad. Grabe lang, sad. Tungod lang sa calculator. Okay? So, kailangan na rin mo mailisa ni mong kalkyo o kasyo. Kung di ka ganahan, mahasol. Okay? Kaya kung mag-sharp yapon ka, mo ginagingon nga, kailangan dyan ka magmanumano. Eh, kung di ka magmanumano, unsa mo pag-solve si mong answer na ron niya, wala mo na shift solve mong sharp. Hastay. So, okay ka. Kansi kasi mga classmate, shift solve na lang. Okay? By the way, no? Okay ra ko nga mag-shift solve mo basta usa na lang ka anon. Pero pag inani nga scenario no natay 3 equations 3 unknowns or kani baka 3 equations 3 unknowns nya diretso ninyo kalkyo. Di ba? Pwede mo na makalkyo ang 3 equations 3 unknowns. Di ko musugot ha. Okay? Pwede lang dali Okay? So, kuha na lang no. Murabag ka ng pang-checking na lang na ninyo ang inyong calculator. Okay? I want you to show your complete solution in solving the problem. Kailangan gyud inyo yung ipakita inyong solution. Okay? Labi na sa kanani no kanang mga 3 equations 3 unknowns, 4 equations 4 unknowns. Ayaw diretso og kalkyo ha. Pwede ra ba gid mo kalkyo. So inyo na lang is pwede na lang ninyo himuong basis na lang inyong answer sa kalkyo. Kung sakto ba inyo na-solve mo naman. So again, I don't want you to narbay uban no, sample nag-solve diha. Butangan day by calculator. I10 is equal to I15. Diretso, biliba na ko. So, ayaw, ha, di ko masagutan na nga diretso on. So, you have to solve, okay? You have to solve manually. It is a practice for you, no? Okay? Okay, what if, wala na yung mga values diha, puros na variable. Okay, what if, inana ang question. So, dili, ba na makalkyo yun. Sao man yung pag-solve na? So, muna nga, practice na ninyo, no? Di ko musugot nga, diretso yung kalkyo, manual yun ang pag-solve. Unless lang, kung usa na lang kabuok anon, then you can use shift solve diretso. Okay? Any other question?
Sir.
None so far.
Wala yung mga pangutana. Sige, no? So, alas city size. Okay. Now, after this, I will be leaving an assignment. Okay? Magbilin ko og circuit and it will be your assignment. You have to pass on or before Wednesday. So, before magsugod itong klase next meeting, that is 5:30, before 5:30, dapat pass na mo sa assignment. Okay, klaro?
Yes, sir.
So, magbilin ko, isa lang ka circuit niya, practicein ninyo og solve. As much as possible, try to solve it on your own. Okay, as much as possible, try to solve it on your own. Mas maayo manggod nga, mas maayo nga kamo mismo ang makatry og solve ba. Okay, para practice na lang po ninyo. Okay, any other questions? Wala na ipangutana? Okay, so kung wala na ipangutana,